welcome back to Alice Talks Football and welcome back to a live Manchester United news and transfer news and general news and update show. Most of it is manager talk, most of it is leaks, but we do have news that Obi Martin has been promising game time this season at United, which is why he's come in and he is part of the squad. He is the third striker, so we will talk about him later in the show, but we've got to talk about the Ashworth news. Ashworth making some moves, some decisions already, some interesting insight in this sort of recruitment and sort of worries within the recruitment team and Ashworth and people, and obviously the leaks and the Ten Hag situation. Now, I covered most of the leaks in my video earlier today, but there was some more interesting leaks coming out, which basically exposed that the players did not rate Ten Hag ball, and they didn't say that he should stay after the FA Cup final, but they also didn't say he should go. So there's a lot of interesting things being said. It has been said that the majority of the dressing room are behind Ten Hag because they've worked with him before, but there is definitely some concerns. Also, you can nominate for Man United Player of the Month. Man United have just reminded us today to vote for their Player of the Month. I mean, Ericsson, Garnacho, and Onana are the nominees. Probably Ericsson. You'd probably give it to Ericsson, wouldn't you, as well? But yeah, the choice of keeping Ten Hag was apparently driven by Ratcliffe and Brailsford. Not Wilcox didn't want Ten Hag, and obviously Ashworth wasn't in. And I think if Ashworth was in, maybe we get a very different position. Crazy how this is unravelling this quickly. It is. I mean, to be honest, is every bit of news and information that comes out around United true? No, media obviously use us for clicks and a little bit of clickbait and stuff, but it seems it's unravelling quickly. This is the situation. It basically is. We're just waiting until Ten Hag is gone because he's just not going to turn it around, and we're going to have more games like Tottenham this season, and it's going to be another 8th place finish, which United can't do because of the money we'll lose for 2 seasons at the Champions League. Or it's going to be he gets a result versus Porto, he gets a result versus Villa, and somehow we get a miracle run of like 6-7 results together in a row, and he makes it to Christmas. Then we get to Christmas, maybe he gets sacked once we start going bad at Christmas time, or he can sustain something to the end of the season. Looking more like the first than the second, but who knows as well. Erling Haaland has the highest XG in the Premier League on average so far this season. Joshua Zirkzee ranks in 10th, so Joshua Zirkzee needs to be a bit more clinical for sure, but it's good that we've got XG for him, because one thing we never did was get XG for Rasmus Højlund as well. Do you think the bar is low? People talking about Thomas Frank. Look, I think it is low at the moment. I think it's when you lose to Tottenham in that manner, and Tottenham were good, but it wasn't even about how good Tottenham was, about how bad we were. We were just a new level of bad. And we let Tottenham walk all over us, and we made it easy for them. And I think Tottenham couldn't believe how bad we were. I think we're in this sort of mindset of everything is just the end, and what's the way back, what's the fix as well. All eyes on Porto United. The thing is, I said after the Barnsley game where we won 7-0, and we were feeling good. We beat Southampton 3-0, Barnsley 7-0. We were feeling good after those 2 games. And I said after Barnsley 7-0, even though we're feeling good, I think we lose to Porto away. I can see it. And the fact that they've now gone and dropped points to Crystal Palace, FC 20, and lost to Tottenham 3-0 since, I'm thinking, I have no confidence for the Porto game. The thing is, it either goes really wrong and he is sacked at October, which Ineos don't want to do. They just came out and publicly backed him a month ago. They don't want to go sack him. They brought in René Hacker. They brought in Ruud van Nistelrooy. They do not want to make the season null and void after 6 Premier League games. They don't want to do that. But if things get really bad, Ineos will have to sack him. They don't want to do that, but they will. But it could be a bit of a situation of, does he turn it around or is he sacked as well? I hear Man United campfire party. I don't know what you mean by that. Doesn't seem the lack of effort. Players are extra confused out there. That's the thing with the players. It doesn't look like a lack of effort. It just looks like they're confused. The thing is, under Ralph Rangnick, the players were disgraced. Under Ralph Rangnick, the players were disgraced. They didn't try. They didn't care. They were disgraced. Under Ten Hag this season, I wouldn't say the players were a disgrace. I'd say they look confused. They look like they don't have a clue what to do. They look like they're trying, and they look absolutely lost. And that does go back down to the manager. But let's get into what Andy Mitten has said, because I am 4 minutes into the stream, and I've realised I haven't actually covered the first story as well. But I will look at the chat in a second. We hardly convincing against FC 20. No, not high hopes against Porto, says Alex. Kazi says Potter in as well. And people saying worried about Porto. Yeah, I'm worried about Porto. We'll talk about that in a sec. But this is what was revealed by Andy Mitten. That was quite interesting. He reveals that Man United players have issues with Ten Hag's playing style. He said, an hour after the FA Cup final win, I spoke to half a dozen of the United players outside the dressing room and I asked them about the manager. Those words weren't being recorded. Not one said the manager should absolutely be sacked, and not one said he should absolutely stay. Yet there were clear issues between the player and the manager about his style. One of them says you cannot have teams in the relegation zones like Sheffield United and Burnley coming to Old Trafford and carving us open. So Andy Mitten, who's a very, very credible journalist, had private conversations with the players, said that none of the players said that Ten Hag should go, but none of the players were saying Ten Hag has to stay, Ten Hag has to stay, which you'd want them to do. You'd want the players to come out and be like, Ten Hag has to stay, Ten Hag has to stay, which does show that, the players aren't 100% convinced on Ten Hag. And they said, look, Sheffield United and Burnley came to Old Trafford and they caused us problems. And that's when the manager's got to do better. So, all this talk of the players, having some doubt around Ten Hag, well, that doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me. If us fans are having doubt around Ten Hag, so can the players. It's not good. Every metric is bad. Ten Hag is breaking a record after record, and none of those records are good. If the players are starting to feel like they don't believe in Ten Hag, I can't blame them. If the players give 100% and run their socks off and try and do what Ten Hag asks them to do, that's the least they can do. Because I feel like they are trying, and I feel like they just don't understand what Ten Hag wants them to do. I feel like they can't do whatever Ten Hag wants them to do, but they're trying, and it's this mess. And I think the fact that the players have mentioned that, these bad teams are, dominating us, and I think the fact that no player was like Ten Hag has to stay, but at the same time, none of them said he had to go. But they were quite 50-50 about him in the summer. I think a few players at United were open to him going in the summer as well. He's got 2 trophies in 2 seasons. He can definitely turn it around. He had a good first season at us. He played unbelievable football at Ajax. That is what we're holding on to. Unbelievable football at Ajax, 2 trophies in 2 seasons. That's what we're holding on to. But it's difficult. It's difficult. I'm someone that tries to be positive. I'm still Ten Hag in, but I've only got about 2 games left of me. Ten Hag's on thin ice. And the reason I say I'm Ten Hag in is because you're either in or out. I'm not someone that's going to be in one game, out the other game. Have I lost belief? Yes. But the reason I am Ten Hag in for now is because the money that was spent in the summer. If Ineos have spent a lot of money in the summer, they brought in who he wants, half our squad of Ten Hag players. They got Rene Hacker and Van Nistelrooy for him. To do all that and sack him after 6 games, even though he probably deserves to be sacked after 6 games, as I said, I'm Ten Hag in, but he's on thin ice. For me, I don't like doing all of that and sacking him after 6 games because you might as well then have got someone else in. Because if we're attacking Ten Hag after 6 games, we're bringing in a very unexperienced Van Nistelrooy, or we're bringing in an interim. But anyone we're going to bring in as an interim, or anyone we're going to bring in as a new manager to replace Ten Hag, is someone we could have got in the summer. Everybody we could have got in the summer, we'll just go for. Which means we went for Ten Hag when we could have got this guy in the summer. We sacked Ten Hag, we then get the guy we could have gone in the summer. I don't want to see that happening. So that is the only reason I'm still Ten Hag in, because I can't defend him. I can't defend him after that Tottenham game. It was atrocious. The only reason I'm still Ten Hag in is because of the money and the backing that Ineos have given him this year, that we almost need it to work. Yeah. Diego says player power is still evident, and player power is still evident, and some players respect those more than the manager. I believe Shaw and Rashford's behaviour is toxic in the dressing room. I don't believe Shaw and Rashford are toxic in the dressing room at all. But I think, and I don't actually think player power is too much of an issue, but I think in the past we had player power issues at this club as well. What difference does the 2 games really make, Alice? You have all games from last year and this year that you've watched. Surely it can't continue. I know it can't continue, but I don't want to sack a guy after 6 games. That is why, but maybe we need to. He's on very thin ice. It's just, I want him to turn it around. I don't think he will. Maybe I'm just delaying the inevitable. Maybe I should be Ten Hag out now, but I just feel like 6 games into the season, I'm really just hoping he can turn it around. But to be honest, I'm not confident he is. Any sort of interim's writing off the season. That's the problem. Is if we sat Ten Hag and bring in Van Nistelrooy as interim to the end of the season, it's almost like we're writing off the season, and I don't want to be writing off the season. So again, I agree with that. That's another concerning factor about bringing an interim in, and this so you've got to get a permanent manager in. But any permanent manager they get in, they could have got in the summer. So why are they doing that? I don't think Shaw and Rashford are toxic, but I do believe they are not being leaders. I think we've just got a lack of leaders in general as well. 2 trophies, 2 seasons, but relegation not ruled out the way we keep playing. Honestly, the fact that we're 12th or 13th, we are closer to the relegation zone than we are to the top 6 at the moment, which is concerning as well. We're not excited for match day. I'm not excited for match day. If someone said, "Oh, do you want to come to Manchester and watch Man United play?" And I say, "What? We scored 1 goal at Old Trafford this season." Part of me would be like, "Do you know what? I'd normally be buzzing for that and be so down." But part of me is like, I don't want to watch us play. I don't want to watch us play. these days. I mean, I will. I'd love to watch us play. I always will watch all of our games, no matter what. But I'm not excited to watch us play like I would be. I'm not excited at all. I don't have that. Oh, we're going to see goals. We're going to see good football. I sometimes get excited watching other teams play because I'm thinking they're playing so good. I'm like, oh, look at this patterns of play. This is good. And then I think, why can't we play it like that? Why can't we play like that? Why can't we excite me? Why can't we excite people as well? Why are United fans being snobby over potential managers? Iriola or Michelle from Bournemouth or Girona respectively would be great appointments, but always shot down. They aren't big enough. Do you know what? I get what you're saying. I think they're both good managers as well. People are saying changing your manager could only be replacing a plaster on without treatment of the injury, which is true. I think Ten Hag, a lot of the issues point more to Ten Hag than the players now, but I think there's definitely a lot of issues with players and then not being to execute stuff, which isn't helping Ten Hag. It is a mixture. It's not just sacking Ten Hag solves everything, and it's not just changing this player for that player. It solves everything. There's a mixture of many things to blame. Ten Hag is partially to blame with his special treatment for non-performing players. Some of the worst performers could have been benched. I agree at a point. I think in his third season he went off performance, but in his third season I think there is elements of favouritism there as well. And this season's a write-off with Ten Hag in the dugout. We have body of work to now the guy from the eye test. He's not the guy from the eye test, and metrically, I mean, the football's crap and the metrics are crap and the numbers are crap. I agree. I think the season we've got to hope Ten Hag turns it around, otherwise it's a write-off, because I don't think we're bringing anyone permanently until the summer, because I think the people that Ineos want permanently won't be around in the summer, and I don't want to write off the season at the beginning of October, so we almost need him to turn it around as well. We really do need him to turn it around. It is early days. We're only 6 games into the season, but that Tottenham game was inexcusable. How badly coached we were as well. There's no need to rush this decision. Needs more games to evaluate the new signings. Euro half hasn't started. Agates has only played 1 pre-L game, which I agree with. That's why I said no matter what happens this season, I can't judge Ten Hag until at least after the international October break, and I'm sticking with that. But that game on Sunday made me pretty much want to be Ten Hag. It was that bad as well. Eric Ten Hag's man management isn't great, and he's little charisma. You can see Slot, for example, much more charismatic from the off, and I agree as well, which I don't like to admit. So let's talk about sort of Ten Hag and potential replacements on the line around this and who's been rumoured and linked to this job. It was said that Manchester United would consider putting Ruud van Nistelrooy in interim charge if they decide to sack Ten Hag. At a meeting with Manchester United bosses a few weeks ago, Ruud van Nistelrooy is said to have left a positive impression, while Ten Hag acted more reserved. The bosses were quite impressed. Manchester United are aware that appointing Gareth Southgate as manager would be appalled by the fan base. It would not go down with the fan base. And I don't think Ineos have any plans of bringing Gareth Southgate in. But what's interesting, that been said, is that Ineos have had conversations with Ruud van Nistelrooy and Ten Hag, but they've been really impressed with Ruud van Nistelrooy and the conversations they've had with him. But I do think if Ten Hag sacked Ruud van Nistelrooy is given job on the interim to the end of the season, I'm quite confident that would be the case. Maybe not the end of the season. Maybe he has a couple of weeks as interim, and maybe there's someone we can get in. But I think he would be interim for a few games, a bit like it came in. Unless there's a manager out there that Ineos are thinking, we want him, this is the guy we want, this is the guy we need. I think Ruud being an interim is very likely if Ten Hag sacked. Thank you very much to the super stick of Vincent, much appreciated as well. Van Nistelrooy is another Ollie. I mean, Van Nistelrooy's probably got a little bit more on his coaching CV in terms of the trophy he won and winning it in the Netherlands. And I like Ruud van Nistelrooy, but he's not someone I think comes to United and makes us, Premier League winners again. But you never know. Arteta was a very inexperienced manager, and look what he's done at Arsenal. Maresca's quite an inexperienced manager. Look what he's done. Students of Ten Hag, but then, sorry, not students of Ten Hag, students of Pep Guardiola, but then Ten Hag was a student of Pep Guardiola as well. If Ten Hag is sacked, which is unlikely after 6 games, but an interim stalls progress, a permanent manager should be Zidane or Nagelsmann. I think Ineos would be looking at Zidane or Nagelsmann, but the question is, could they get them, and could they get them now? That's going to be the big question. I think Ineos will be looking around at managers. I generally believe this week Ineos are looking around, having a little bit of chat about managers and the manager situation at United in case they have to pull the trigger, because I think Ineos will want to know they've got an option they're happy with to replace Ten Hag if they have to pull the trigger. Nagelsmann would be ideal, young, tactically brilliant. If that doesn't work, the club might just be cursed at this point. I agree. The one thing about Nagelsmann is he would need a lot of time because his system and his way of playing is so different to what we have now, and a lot of Ten Hag signings would be out the door very, very soon as well. But I get exactly what you're saying. I think Nagelsmann would be great. I think with Bivell's relationship with Nagelsmann, he might even be one of the first choices as well. Do you think Ten Hag will get us relegated? We're not that bad. No, I don't. And Company is doing well at Bayern. He is. You know, a lot of people were saying Thomas Tuchel. He did all right at Bayern last year, but Company's come in. Obviously, had a good transfer window, which helps, and is doing crazy stuff with Bayern Munich. So, you know, is Thomas Tuchel a bit out of date? That's another question to have. But I do like Thomas Tuchel. But yeah, I was saying something and I completely zoned out there. But Tuchel is doing good at Bayern Munich. Someone said, Alice, do you think they'll appeal the Bruno red card? I think they probably are going to appeal the Bruno red card, and I think the appeal will be successful. I'd be very shocked if it wasn't. But let's continue into the next story because I'm a bit tired. I'm all over the place today. It was said Manchester United's recruitment staff are on their tenterhooks amid greater scrutiny of the club's hit rate in the transfer market. Well-placed sources say the arrival of Sergeant Ratcliffe has created a stricter recruitment operation at the club. One scout said the staff are working in fear that as they're under the impression that their jobs could be on the line if they make a mistake over a signing. So that's interesting. I do feel like this summer they took the safe bet a lot of the signings. I felt that Ineos had come in and Ashworth had come in, but to be honest, they weren't properly in. But I felt some of the signings were the safe bet. Euro was won by Madrid. That was a bit of a safe bet. Xerxes was definitely a risky one, but you know, he was a good player and AC Milan were in for him. I think Xerxes was the right decision. But you look at what we did in the window, and I think it's a mixture of safe bets like De Ligt, Mazraoui, players that have played under 10 before. And then you got Agate, which is the only risky one. And then he's being played wrong and out of position. And I think the recruitment this summer has been really, really good. But I do also think that there's definitely some areas of concerns around maybe elements of recruitment. I think this summer's been good, but I think previous summers have been an issue. And I think it's also, are Ineos recruiting for Ten Hag or Ineos recruiting for who they think could replace Ten Hag in the future as well? Why we are setting another club legend up for a fall. Ruud isn't the guy. The thing is, Ruud van Nistelrooy, if he comes in and he's interim manager, I get behind him. I want him to succeed, but it would be an impossible job for him. But it was said that United's recruitment staff were on the tenterhooks amid greater scrutiny of the club's hit rate with the transfer market. Well-placed sources say the arrival of Ratcliffe has created a stricter environment at the club. One scout said staff are working in fear as they're under pressure that jobs could be on the line if they make another mistake over a signing. So there's definitely a worry within Ashworth and those inside Ineos that they cannot make recruitment mistakes like Mercer and Arnold did, or their job could be on the line, and they do not want that, and that is fair enough as well. In terms of Dan Ashworth, it was said that he's an inaugural sporting director. Dan Ashworth has used the closure of these transfer windows to take a deep dive into the inner workings of Manchester United, having started on July 30th. First, Ashworth's priority during his first 2 months was United's window activity, but he was noted shortcomings in certain areas as well. So he noticed that centre-back, there's no depth there. We need to do something there, which is fair. It was said that Ashworth football board member Sir Dave Gelsford, technical director Jason Wilcox, and head of scouting Vival, and Matt Hargreaves, the director of football negotiations, were all in attendance for the Spurs game, and all seen having a conversation right after, which may or may have not been to do with Ten Hag as well. Guys, give me 1 second. I'm just going to grab my drink. Oh, she's back. She's back. Sorry. My throat was literally gone and my voice was about to go, and I didn't want to do that on stream. That happened once where my throat just dried up and I was on stream and I think I went like, it sounded really, really weird there. But, yes, talking of news. So, Sporting director Ashworth has used the closure of the transfer window to take a deep dive into the inner workings at United. Having started on July 1st, Ashworth's priority his first 2 months of the United's window was Windows activity, but he noticed shortcomings in certain areas. Ashworth football board members Dave Brailsford, technical director Wilcox, and head of scouting Vival, and Matt Hargreaves were in attendance for the loss versus Spurs. But Ashworth obviously wanted to take a deep dive into the inner workings at United when he first joined, but he realised there's a lot to do in the transfer window. Noticed there was sort of some shortcomings in certain areas. He brought in Vival was one of the first things he did. He wanted someone else to help with recruitment because Ashworth isn't a recruitment specialist. And he knew there was a lot of work to do as well. So I think Ashworth will be a good appointment at United. And I completely zoned out and forgot where I was when I quickly went to get that drink. So I do apologise. You can see Ruud's personality is very different, seems very friendly and good character. Interestingly, going a bit back to this, I did a live stream last week, and in that live stream we discussed apparently how the players were warming to Ruud van Nistelrooy a lot more than they would be warming to the likes of Mitchell van der Gaag. Apparently the players didn't warm to Mitchell van der Gaag, but they're warming to Ruud van Nistelrooy. They have a good relationship with him, they get on with him, and he's sort of the middleman between the players and Ten Hag because he's really good at communicating with both. It was actually said that the players do warm well to that as well. We obviously spoke about this earlier, that United's recruitment staff are on tenterhooks amid greater scrutiny of the club's hit rate in the transfer market. Well-placed sources say the arrival of Sir Jim Ratcliffe has created a stricter recruitment operation at the club, and one scout said staff are working in fear. They're under the impression their job could be on the line if they make a mistake. That was obviously said earlier, which I think is a bit silly. I think, you've been here 1 year. I think you can make mistakes. I think if you are the best in class and you have a good reputation, you should be given 2 or 3 windows. I think the recruitment team should be. There might be mistakes here and there. Agate may be a mistake if you sat Ten Hag because he's a player that only suits a certain few managers' profiles. Mistakes can be made. Man City make mistakes. Arsenal make mistakes. Mistakes can be made, but it's if you have 80% success with signings and 20% mistakes, that's fine. The problem with United is it's been 20% success, 80% mistakes, which is the worry there. And there's apparently sort of the board operating a little bit nervy. And going back to what I was trying to say earlier before I zoned out, I think one of the reasons that we signed De Ligt and Mazraoui and Xerxes is because they're all players Ten Hag's familiar with. And I think there was a little bit of scaredness. I know Ineos came out and said that this was their window and that they made the decisions. I don't believe that. I think a lot of these signings that Ineos brought in were Ten Hag signings because I think they were a bit nervy and was like, well, this is who Ten Hag wants. This is who he's worked with before. I do think there was a bit of nerves there by Ineos. And obviously, they've got a big and nervy decision to make soon. It was said that Manchester United face fresh profit and sustainability PSR challenges if they go another year without playing in the Champions League. And this is one of the reasons that I think potentially the trigger could be pulled on Ten Hag early if it looks like we're not going to get in the Champions League. I think because of the pressure to finish in the Champions League this season, there is a potential that Ineos pull the trigger and they get rid of Ten Hag early. I really do think there is that possibility. Now, again, the earliest they're going to do it is after, of course, Porto and Villa, but it's definitely a possibility as well. Ruud would be cheaper than buying a manager out of their contract. Ineos are aware of that. Well, if we do sack Ten Hag, it's going to cost us £17 million. I think the fact that sacking Ten Hag is going to cost us £17 million, but only 6 games into the season, and obviously they gave Ten Hag significant backing in the summer and changed a lot to help out Ten Hag. I don't think Ineos want to sack him after 6 games, particularly when they came up and said they were backing him. But I think if Villa and Porto are bad, he may earn himself the sack as well. Someone said getting rid of the manager and forcing someone else to play Rashford and Bruno would be more of the same. It's us playing badly has nothing to do with Rashford and Bruno. It has nothing to do with it. We've seen Rashford and Bruno not playing, United still be crap. I think when things are bad, we always look for someone to blame it on, thinking, if he stops playing Rashford and Bruno, it'll be okay. He can drop Rashford, he can drop Bruno, he can play Amad and Garnacho on the wings, and he can play Eriksen in the 10, and I don't think we look much better. And the reason I say that is because we used to say, why don't you drop McFred and give Donny and Matic a go? We'd still be crap. McFred would be dropped, Maguire would be dropped, David De Gea was swapped out, Ronaldo was swapped out, and we were still crap. We always felt, this one player's holding the team back, or this player's holding the team back. And when that player was dropped and replaced, we realised that actually that player was not a bigger problem as we think. And I think people are blaming Bruno and Rashford for everything because they're looking for something to blame. They're looking for an easy fix. But whether Bruno and Rashford start or not, it's not going to make a difference to how we play, our results and our performances. It's not. Yes, Bruno should be subbed off ahead of the likes of Xerxes if Bruno's having a stinker of a game. But I don't like this whole, Bruno and Rashford are the problem. Bruno and Rashford aren't the problem. Bruno's had a crap start to the season, but I don't think dropping Bruno and playing Eriksen as a 10 is going to make us look a lot better as well. Erik ten Hag and Van der Gaag seem more like an old school, cold sort of Dutch type. Ruud doesn't seem like that at all. Yeah, and I think Ruud van Nistelrooy seems a bit more modern with his approach, which I think is appealing to the players more, whereas the other two are a bit more old school as well. Like you, Alice, I'd like Ten Hag to stay first summer under Ineos and fix all the problems, but he can't fix all the problems in one window. The thing is, I want Ten Hag to be successful because I don't want to sack him this early into the season because I think we're writing off the season, despite Ruud van Nistelrooy having potential to be a good interim. But it is so bad that if Ineos do sack him, they've got every right to, because the football we are watching at the moment is absolutely horrendous as well. Didn't we post something like 100 million last financial year? Might be tight to spend next summer. It could be a real tight spend next summer if we don't qualify for the Champions League. We lose all that money and we take another loss. It really could be as well. Just play a full team of young players. They might lose, but it's the road to the future, playing Eriksen hardly is, which is true. I think Eriksen's been good lately, but do we just focus on the future? Do we just say, you know what, let's give Carrington some minutes because that is the future as well? In terms of the future, this is what was said on Obi Martin. As things stand, Obi Martin will actually be United's third choice striker for next season, so he will see minutes with the first team, which is something Arsenal could not guarantee. Obviously, Arsenal sources tried to make out he left Arsenal and went to Man United for the money. We know that's not the case. He went to Man United because we guaranteed him game time, but it has come out and said that Obi Martin is expected to get game time at Man United this season. He's seen as the third striker. Expect him on the bench. Expect minutes towards the end of the season. They obviously want him to get used to playing with the under-18s and settled in for us as well. The worry is on paper, the squad now seems better than results. That points to Ten Hag, and that's the worry I'm having. You know, as someone that's massively backed Ten Hag and has made a lot of excuses for Ten Hag and supported Ten Hag, I look at our starting 11 and I'm saying that starting 11 should be able to beat Spurs, particularly at home. And we didn't get anywhere near Spurs. We got, in fact, absolutely completely, battered by Spurs. And I think we've got a good players now. They're internationals. They go on international duty and they're amazing. And that's where the problem does start to look at Ten Hag, because I think the players are trying. I think we have good players, but the players are playing bad. The players are being massively misprofiled, and that does come down to Ten Hag. Obviously, Maresca's only been there 6 games, and we saw what happened with Andrew after about 10 games. But I wanted to quickly read this out here. I'm getting a little worried about Ten Hag, seeing how Maresca has come into Chelsea and adapted to some of his players' strengths as well as the opposition. Meanwhile, Erik Ten Hag signs Ugarte but doesn't play into his strengths, and then in fact exposes his weaknesses when he uses Maino. He's using him incorrectly. He's using him for off-the-ball work and not so much on the ball. When we're in games where we need control, he'll sell off Eriksen, Xerxes and Ahmad and bring on direct players, but we need control in that game. And if we want to be more direct, have Mason Mount on the pitch, because that's one thing he can do. And it's like, we don't line up depending on the game state. I don't think he does his research into the opposition and their tactics as well. And I can look at Maresca and say he did his research into Chelsea. He probably watched every game before he joined. He did his research into the opposition. And, you look at Maresca, he sort of knows his best starting 11. He sort of knows the subs that he's going to make. He's been at Brighton 6 games. Ten Hag, it looks lost. Now, some of it is definitely going to be on the players and their inability to follow instructions. But when this many players looks lost on the Ten Hag, it's a concern. Spurs is one thing, but we should be handling 20 Fulham, Brighton, Palace types more. 100% agree. Only just beat some of those clubs, and we only just beat Fulham and not Palace. But we only beat Fulham out of those clubs. We only beat Fulham out of those clubs, which is particularly worrying. Particularly worrying as well. Someone said, I think it's more to do with FFP challenge without UCL football. You can't buy 3 points. That could easily lead to a distraction. I think the fact that if we don't finish in the top 4 this season, we don't get UCL. Sorry, we don't get UCL sponsor. I can't speak today. My brain's not on it. I think the fact that because if we don't finish in the UCL 2 seasons in a row, our sponsors get cut. And if our sponsors get cut, we lose money, which means Ineos won't be happy, which impacts FFP, which impacts our ability to spend. I do apologise. I'm just so exhausted today. I can't string my words together. I feel like I've just been waffling nonsense. But I did say one of my biggest concerns around Ten Hag is I don't feel like he does his research on the opposition. And it's like Spurs played exactly how you expect Spurs to play, and he didn't change anything up about it. And I think that is one element of things that's concerning me. And then obviously I can understand why the players are now concerned. This was obviously said by the players. Leaks coming out today suggest the players have expressed concerns over Ten Hag's style of play after the FA Cup win. Many didn't fully support him staying, but were not entirely against it either, with some players surprised he wasn't sacked in the summer. This week, the players have openly discussed the possibility of Ten Hag getting sacked, and many United players having doubts about Ten Hag. Under Rangnick, I felt the players didn't care. I'll try. Under Ten Hag, I do think the players care, but I think they're not able to do what they're trying or lack belief. As a fan who's tried to back Ten Hag, I'm losing confidence that they can't turn things around. So there's no excuses, less injuries. We have a good transfer window. We've got Ineos around him, and we're still being tactically outclassed. Obviously, it's early days, and I don't think we can go around blaming the players. But I just think that they're not believing on Ten Hag anymore. I think the Man United players have lost belief in Ten Hag. I really do, and I think you can see that running on the pitch as well. What's next for Ten Hag? Maybe a left back if he makes it to January. Who knows? Alice, please calm down on Maresca, who's enjoying a new manager bounce with Ange and Glasner at Palace enjoyed last year, which is true. I should have put that in the tweet. I think new manager bounce is definitely a thing. We've seen it with Ollie. You're absolutely true. You're absolutely correct. But I do think that when I've watched Chelsea, they play good. It's not like their new manager bounce is meaning they're actually crap and picking up points. No, they actually have been quite good. They even look good in games like Man City, which they lost as well. But listen, people, I'm just falling asleep. I feel like I can't concentrate this live stream, so I feel like I'm just going to waffle a load of shite. So I'm going to wrap up the live stream here, but I do apologise if about 15 minutes in I just had a bit of a waffle. Please hit the like button. Of course, subscribe down below if you're new. Ashworth's obviously a little bit worried about making decisions in terms of recruitment, and he also wants to be ruthless as well. See you next time. Bye.